Night comes softly to the valley. It does not fall all at once. It arrives like a hush someone places over a room, a gentle palm to quiet a crowd. The last ribbons of daylight slip behind the black teeth of the pines, and all the little lights of Gravity Falls begin to wake. Porch lamps blink on. Diner windows glow like warm honey, and the neon sign at the edge of town hums its sleepy song. Even the river seems to slow its voice, trading chatter for a steady, drowsy murmur that can carry you all the way to sleep if you let it. You can smell the night here. Damp bark, cold stone, sweet sap that clings to the air long after the sawdust has settled. Far off, an owl lifts its note like a soft bell. The wind shifts and the firs respond, 1,000 tiny needles singing in place. Overhead, the sky cleans itself of cloud until stars show through like pins in velvet, and the moon takes its time, silver and unhurried. Nothing in Gravity Falls ever truly sits still, but tonight even the odd things agree to be gentle. We begin our walk at the town sign. It is older than it looks and younger than it feels. The paint always a little chipped, the letters a little brave. From here, the road curves toward a cluster of buildings that stand shoulder to shoulder, as if listening to the same story. There's the greasy spoon where the coffee is strong and the pie is kinder than it needs to be. There is the small antique shop that is never open at the same time twice. There is a clock in the square that keeps perfect time except when no one is watching. And on those nights, it chooses to rest its hands and wait for somebody to care again. All of this is real. All of this is also a whisper. Gravity Falls sits at a crossroad most maps forget to mark. It is a place where tall tales sit close to the truth, and warm hands pour tea for both. You may have heard rumors about odd symbols and stranger visitors. You may have heard names, some spoken, some better left folded in your pocket. Tonight we hold the rumors carefully. We let them be soft. This is not a night for sharp corners. This is a night for listening. If you stand very still by the sign, you can feel the ground tell its slow story. Once long before the first lantern, before the first plank, the valley watched the sky. It learned the shapes of stars and the paths of birds. It learned which winds brought rain and which winds brought laughter. Then came footsteps. Then came fires. Then came a town that never quite agreed to be ordinary. The valley did not mind. It liked a bit of company. It liked that each generation left a new layer of footprints for the next to find. You and I will follow those layers now. We will walk the old road by moonlight. We will not rush. We will let the crickets set the pace and the trees decide what to remember. If the night offers a doorway, we will peek through with polite curiosity. If the past asks for quiet, we will nod and keep walking. There is safety in our steps. There is patience in our voice. There is a blanket of stars above us and the soft promise that every mystery we touch will be set down again gently, right where we found it. As we move, you may feel the light grow warmer around certain places. The world seems to hold its breath by the edge of the woods, or the stump on the hill, or the crooked porch with a welcome mat that has seen too many boots. That is the valley pointing. That is the story clearing its throat. When it does, we will listen together. When it doesn't, we will lean back into the sound of the river, which knows how to carry a person toward rest. So take a breath. Let your shoulders fall. The night in Gravity Falls is wide and kind. We begin in the time before names, before signs, before any of this called itself a town. We begin where the valley learned to dream. Long before anyone claimed a deed or hammered a board, the valley was a bowl of green held by dark mountains and stitched together by water and wind. In summer, the hills wore their bright coats and shimmered with heat, while the river curled like a silver ribbon at their feet. In winter, the world quieted and the pines wore snow like careful hats. The animals followed their simple calendars. The ground did not hurry. Even lightning seemed to visit slowly, laying its bright finger along a ridge and then drifting away. People came as people do, not all at once. A path warned the creek, a circle of ash where a fire sat. Notes carved into bark that said, "I was here in a language time has softened." The first stories in the valley were told like this: smoke talking to stars, shadows moving on rock, hands drawing symbols they felt rather than learned. The symbols were not warnings, they were invitations. Stay a while, watch the sky, and count the beats between the owl's calls and you will know the weather. Stack the stones just so, and your dreams will be kind. Some nights the moon climbed higher than it should, and the shadows near the river went pale as milk. On those nights, the current slowed until leaves floating on the surface seemed to forget where they were going. A breeze would come from two directions at once, and the grass would lie down politely to let it pass. The people noticed. They gave this hour a name in their language. You can call it second twilight. It is the moment when the day sighs one last time and the night answers with a smile. It still visits here. If you are careful, you can catch it standing in the open, feeling the light change, hearing a bird decide to sing and then decide not to. From time to time, the valley changed its mind about certain facts. A brook that used to whisper turned chatty for a season. A hill lost and found a footpath the way a person loses and finds a thought. No one was bothered. The place was alive and allowed its small moods. The early keepers of the valley listened more than they spoke. If a tree leaned over the water like a teacher, they gathered beneath it. If the fog settled along the ground like a low cloud made of old secrets, they waited for it to clear and did not try to rush it away with hands. They learned that patience was a kind of key, and that the valley opened slowly only for those who carried patience without bragging about it. When strangers finally came with maps, the valley smiled in its quiet way and kept a few more doors locked. The maps were never wrong, they were only polite. They wrote the names of things that wanted names and left blank spaces where the land preferred to hum. At night, campfires drew circles of gold on the ground, and voices moved through stories that grew bigger in the telling. Some were warnings meant to keep children from the low marsh at dawn. Some were warm memories of a deer that stood and stared like a person long enough to feel like a neighbor. And some were small notices about the unusual sprig of fern that straightened when a certain star rose, a notch on a cliff that rang like a bell when rain hit it just right, a bloom that opened only if no one looked too directly. The valley collected these details like buttons in a jar. Every generation added more. Not all of them were true in the way a rule is true. Many were true in the way a lullaby is true. They help people sleep. They help people remember. And the valley liked being remembered. Once a traveler tried to catch the second twilight in a jar. They waited in the meadow until the air went soft and the light went strange, and they closed their glass with a fast hand. For a heartbeat, it worked. The jar glowed from the inside like a candle lit by the sky itself. Then the light decided it wanted to be everywhere again and asked the glass to let go. The jar warmed in the traveler's palm. The traveler opened their hand and the light walked back out without making a sound. After that, no one tried to bottle the hour again. They learned to meet it like an old friend, with a nod and an open door. There are bones in this ground, of course. Every place keeps a record of what lived and left. The valley does not make a fuss about this. It carries its fossils under the ferns and the gravel without turning them into warnings. At the edge of the river, there is a stone that looks like a curled leaf. and if you sit on it long enough, you will feel warmer than the air should allow, as if the stone remembers sunlight from a century ago and is happy to share it. That is the valley, too. Nothing is wasted. Old warmth has a way of returning when someone needs it. So before the pines does not mean empty. It means layered. It means patient. It means a place that learned to hold both quiet and curiosity at the same time. The valley expected visitors one day. It set out the long path and the short path. It practiced its moonlight. It kept a few puzzles near the door in case anyone liked puzzles. And then, when footsteps finally came steady and sure, the valley did what it always does. It listened. Founding a town is not as dramatic as people pretend. It is mostly wood and weather and the bravery of making a promise to a place you barely know. Someone set a stake here. Someone scratched a date into it. Someone said home and hoped the land would agree. They built simple at first. Roofs that could shrug off rain, walls that could hold heat, a floor that did not complain when boots came home muddy. They lined the main road with their best straight boards, then turned a blind eye when the boards bowed a little in the wet. A bell hung in the square on a beam that never quite sat level. When it rang, everyone came, even if the bell sounded a bit tired, even if the rope burned the hands of the person pulling it. Town is not a shape. Town is a habit of coming when called. They named things. Rivers are fine with or without names, but people like the feel of words in their mouths, and so the river accepted its new sound and kept flowing. The mountains took their honors too, tall and silent and happy to be pointed at. Streets earned wooden signs. The signs were never in the same place for very long. The wind enjoyed mischief, and the posts liked to lean. But no one got lost because the path people walked most often told its own story, and shoe leather is the best chalk. The town always had a memory for silliness. It kept a ledger of pranks, tall tales, and jokes told too late at night that still made sense in the morning. In a window on Main Street, a ceramic frog sat for years and no one bought it because it had become part of the window and the window had become part of the town. And the town had decided the frog was, in a small way, historic. At the diner, a jukebox learned which songs the morning shift needed and offered them first. In the barber's, a mirror sometimes showed a person with slightly better posture, not to lie, but to encourage. There were proud moments. There were embarrassing moments. One mayor found himself so comforted by the rhythm of his own speeches that he dozed off while giving one. He woke to applause and never learned that the applause was for the raccoon that had wandered onto the platform and looked deeply philosophical about tax reform. Another winter, the river froze so thick, the children skated from one end of town to the other, and a baker learned he could slide pies to customers with a gentle push. The pies slowed exactly when they reached the right hands, and no one could explain why. The baker shrugged and called it good service. Not all strangeness made itself known with a trumpet. Most arrived like fog. A compass might wobble a little outside the general store. A lamp might flicker brighter when anyone told the truth and dim again for polite lies. A door that stuck in summer swung freely when the moon was full. People noticed. People did not panic. They treated these things as one treats a shy neighbor. Smile, nod, make sure the path is clear. Visitors came now and then. Some arrived with notebooks and found their pencil tips wore down faster here, as if the paper enjoyed being written on and invited more. Some arrived with questions. The town gave answers in order of kindness rather than accuracy. A traveler looking for a legend always left with a story, though it might not be the story they asked for. The town was not unhelpful. It simply had a sense of humor. It was good for the heart. At the edge of the square stood a clock. It is important. It kept faithful time through storms and parades and the quiet Sundays when only the gulls seemed to have appointments. But there were nights, rare and special, when all the people had gone home and the last laugh had been folded into a pillow, that the clock let its hands rest. Just a moment. Just a sigh. It liked to hear the river without counting the seconds between each splash. It liked to remember the first nail that bit into its frame. Then, before anyone noticed, the hands woke and pointed again, ready to help. Some will tell you the town was founded by a leader with a grand plan. Some will tell you it simply grew the way moss grows on stone because the conditions were right, and the stone did not object. Both are true enough. What matters is that the town became a place where a person could breathe. It became a place where oddness put on an apron and helped with the dishes, where secrets were not always heavy, where a child could look at the night and think not of fear, but of how many stars a pocket could hold if pockets were just a little bigger. By the time the town had its first festival, it had also learned its first promise to itself. We will take care of each other. Someone painted that promise on a banner, and though the paint peeled and the cloth frayed, new hands patched it, and new letters kept the meaning whole. It hung above the square on hot days and cold ones. It was there the evening a pair of brothers, not yet legend, crossed beneath it, and did not know that the town had been waiting for them as patiently as trees wait for spring. Families are constellations. You can trace them in different ways and end up with the same stars. The Pines constellation formed far from this valley, under different roofs, with different weather knocking at the windows. But the pattern was there early. Two brothers orbiting the same idea of home, sometimes close, sometimes on opposite sides of the sky, always part of the same design. They learned the world the usual way, by touching what they were told not to, by asking questions in rooms that preferred answers, by making small tools out of odds and ends because hands like to build even when the plans are only half true. One brother loved the quiet of a desk lit by a lamp and the feeling of a question growing heavy in the mind until it turned into a key. The other loved the sound of a door opening even when it squeaked, loved the grin you earn when you make something out of nothing but nerve and a bent nail. Neither was wrong. The world needs both. They did not arrive in Gravity Falls as heroes. They arrived the way most of us arrive in the places that change us. Tired, hopeful, just brave enough. The road into town was the same road everyone takes, but it felt different under their boots. The valley noticed. The town looked up from its chores. Somewhere a bell decided to ring one extra time for no reason anyone could name. They found work. They found trouble. They found the comfort of a routine and the itch that comes when a routine does not fully fit. Some nights, one brother sat with a notebook and wrote the way a person breathes, steady and necessary. Other nights, the other brother counted coins and counted chances and decided which one could be stretched furthest. There were mistakes. There were small victories. There was the old and simple joy of a good sandwich eaten on a porch that leaned a little but did not mind. Gravity Falls began to fit them the way a sweater fits after you roll the sleeves. The town's oddness did not scare them. If anything, it felt like recognition. The careful brother met the valley's patience with his own. He traced the edges of the strange without tearing it. He learned to listen to the shape of a problem until it told him which tool to fetch. The bold brother met the valley's humor with his. He took setbacks like a punchline and sold admission to the story. When he made a promise, he kept it, even when keeping it required a new invention called getting up again. They argued as brothers do. The arguments were weather. Some blew over before the kettle whistled. Some rained for a season and watered the ground. Beneath all of it, a deeper line held. If one fell, the other reached. If one found a door, the other checked the hinges. If one forgot the point of a long day, the other reminded him that food and laughter counted as proof that the day had not been wasted. There are certain places in town that keep fingerprints longer than you would expect. The old tool bench beneath the porch. The corner of the yard where two fence panels meet and make a pocket for secrets. The back step where a person sits at the end of the day to count the mistakes they survived and the ones they will fix tomorrow. If you touch those places now, you can feel a pulse. That is the memory of their hands. That is the town holding its breath at the moment when two lives knit themselves to a location. Before long, the brothers stood under that banner in the square, "We will take care of each other," and realized it was not only a promise the town had made to itself. It was a promise the town made to them. They accepted it the way you accept a blanket you did not think you needed. Warmth first, understanding after. There were choices ahead that would tilt the map. There were drawings to be made and schemes to be tried and hurts to be mended. But for a while, life was simply the sound of nails tapping into wood and the soft satisfaction of setting a thing straight. In the morning, they walked into a day that liked them. At night, they sat in the hum of the valley and let the breeze comb their thoughts. If you stood on the road then and looked toward that porch, you might have seen two figures at rest. You might have thought, without knowing why, that the town had reached its hand out and found two hands reaching back. And that is how roots begin. Not with trumpets, not with a sign hammered into the ground by a gold ribbon and a speech. Roots begin when a place and a person say yes to each other and keep saying it, even when the weather turns. The Pines brothers said yes. The valley said yes. In that agreement, the next chapters found room to grow. A blank page is the quietest room in the world. It waits without hurrying you, without judging you, and when you finally breathe onto it with ink, it listens. That is how the first journal began, on a night when the valley seemed especially awake, and the lamp on the desk made a warm circle where questions could sit. He did not try to capture everything at once. He started small because small is honest. A leaf pressed flat inside wax paper. A sketch of a footprint beside a thumb for scale. Notes on the way the river's voice changes after rain. How it lowers and slows like someone whispering a secret twice to make sure you heard. The first entry ended with a sentence that was not an answer but an invitation. I will come back tomorrow and see if it changes. The journals grew like a careful garden. New pages sprouted from old ones, margins filled with tiny arrows pointing to earlier thoughts, as if the future reached back to shake hands with the past. He drew with patient lines, labeling things without owning them. If he did not know the name of a creature, he wrote what it did instead. Wakes at second twilight, eats only the bitter berries and leaves the sweet ones for travelers. Hums when it is content, a sound like a jar warming in the sun. The tools were simple. A good pen, a pencil that smiled when it met the page, rulers for those moments when a neat line could help a messy thought stand up straight. But the truest tool was a practice. See, then say what you saw, no more and no less. When a note began to tilt toward fear, he corrected it the way you might straighten a picture frame. He wanted the journals to be a lantern and not an alarm. Some pages carried little experiments. Would the compass behave if he asked it politely? It would if the moon was high. Could the same trail be walked in two directions and feel like different trails? Yes, if you let the trees lead on the way out and memory lead on the way back. Sometimes a page was only weather because weather is a map of mood. Cloud cover, soft. Rain, kind. Wind, curious about everything, harmlessly nosy. He made a habit of leaving a blank half-page at the end of each section. Later readers could add to it a pressed petal, a timestamp, a correction written in the good-tempered voice that belongs to friends who disagree but still plan to share lunch. The journals were never meant to be locked. They were meant to be held and gently argued with and put back where others could find them. On nights when the town slept hard, the desk lamp threw its golden circle onto the spine of Journal 1, Journal 2, Journal 3, stacked like steps for a thought to climb. Ink dried to the soft salt shine that means a page is ready to turn. Somewhere outside, the clock in the square took its little sigh before its hands resumed their work. In that small pause, a fresh idea often arrived. What if the valley itself keeps a journal? What if the rings in the trees and the bends in the river are its handwriting? If so, what are the margins for? Perhaps people are the margins, the notes the valley writes to remind itself what it felt like to be walked through. Not all entries were neat. Some afternoons the page caught the edge of a fast day and wore a coffee ring like a badge. A bit of pine sap glued two corners together for years until someone finally coaxed them apart with a butter knife and a prayer. Once, a single hair, copper, human, stuck to a strip of tape and stayed there. A tiny bookmark of a moment. Someone leaned over the desk and said softly, "Look at this." The journals liked these flaws. They made the books feel lived in rather than worshipped. And because the journals were kind, they also kept boundaries. If a memory was too sharp to touch, it was stored as a drawing instead, softened by pencil until it could be held. If a discovery felt like a door that should not be kicked open at night, the page gave it a gentle label and a quiet period. Not now. Later, maybe. Come back with the daylight and two friends. At the back of each journal, there was a page titled Field Promises. The first was simple. Take only what the page can carry. Leave the forest to thank you. Name things with care. Names are a kind of leash. Don't tighten them more than needed. If you learn something that could scare someone who doesn't need scaring, tell it like a bedtime story, true but soft. Over time, other hands added their own promises. Bring extra pencils. Eat before you start. Hungry notes are impatient. Celebrate small patterns. Write the day's kindness, not just the day's puzzles. The page filled, then filled again as the books multiplied. Even the promises looked like a map. The path of how to be a good guest in a place that had been here long before you and would be here long after. Sometimes the journals were shelves. Sometimes they were bridges. Sometimes they were a lap to put your head on when the night felt too big. When a person who loved answers lost one, they could open a book and find instead a story about a moth that always circled the same lamp twice before choosing darkness. The moth never explained itself. The page did not demand that it should. Contentment can also be data. If you hold a journal now and tilt it under the lamp, you will see impressions from previous pages, faint hills and valleys pressed into the paper by a hand that wrote with purpose. Run your finger across them and you will feel a second book underneath the first. The book of pressure, the book of efforts, the book of how much someone wanted to understand. That's a kind of lore, too. The weight of love a place inspires. Some say the journals are a record of oddness. They are. But more than that, they are a record of listening. The valley offers 1,000 soft voices. The journals are the bottle you hold only long enough to hear them sing, then you let them go again. When a page ends, the lamp goes off. The window shows only your reflection and a scatter of stars. The books rest. The questions rest. You rest. And the valley, pleased to be written about with gentleness, turns one more ring in the tree and sleeps. A house is a person wearing wood. The Mystery Shack, though it has worn other names and other coats of paint, always felt like a person who learned to smile with a gap-toothed grin and never apologized for it. It creaked in the right places, as if laughter and the last nail shared the same syllable. Its neon sign hummed like a cat that knew exactly when visitors were coming, which was often. It did not start grand. Few good things do. A rough porch, a counter that looked like it had once been part of a different counter, a cash register that sighed but cooperated. The early displays were a little embarrassed by themselves and therefore charming. A jar labeled Mysterious Air that was, to be fair, very mysterious if you had not seen that jar before. A dusty diorama that claimed to be from a lost expedition, and probably was, if you define lost as misplaced by a generous imagination. The Shack's greatest talent was turning the ordinary into an event. A squeaky floorboard became an exhibit about haunted steps. The label read, "Listen closely. Do not be afraid. It only wants attention." A crooked window offered a 2-for-1 special. View of the forest, plus a lesson in how glass remembers storms. The gift shop performed a kind of honest trick. You went in to buy a postcard and came out with a story you couldn't wait to retell. That is fair trade. Behind the front room, the shack hid rooms the way friendly people hide cookies. A curtain, a sign on a nail, 2 boots left as if someone had stepped right out of them. No one ever mapped the whole interior in a way that stayed current. Stairs led to more stairs that led to a platform where you could see less than before, but somehow felt wiser about it. A tiny door opened to a closet that smelled like rain even in dry months. The attic hosted a draft that learned names and said them back when no one else was around. If you waved to it, it ruffled your hair like an ant. Guests arrived in herds, pairs, and thoughtful singles. Families bringing kids wide-eyed and sticky from summer. Couples on their second or third visit because the first one had felt like an inside joke worth repeating. Travelers who had followed a rumor and were delighted to discover the rumor had underplayed things. The bell above the door had opinions and rang accordingly. Bold for people who looked like they needed to be welcomed. Quieter for people who needed to enter like they had always belonged. The shack had a caretaker who believed in making something out of what you had today rather than waiting for perfect materials tomorrow. The place responded to that spirit. When a shelf sagged, a prop leaned up to help. When a light flickered, a mirror angled itself to share. When a line of customers grew too long, a popular postcard split into 2 designs so the conversation at the register would last just the right amount of time. These adjustments were not magic in the loud sense. They were magic in the domestic sense. A home deciding to meet you halfway. On hot afternoons, the porch shade held like a promise. Lemonade sweated in paper cups. The sound of the highway faded into a comfortable hum. You could sit on the steps and count license plates and know the shack was doing its job when laughter bubbled up every few minutes, when someone came out trying to look skeptical and failing, when 2 strangers became co-conspirators because their favorite part had been the same impossible thing. At night, the neon sign spelled out its invitation in patient light. Maisa Weshke, it sometimes read, depending on which tubes felt like working. The missing letters never soured the mood. If anything, they encouraged the eye to play fill in the blank, and the brain loves a game where it is guaranteed to win. Inside, the floor groaned like a satisfied diner. The old wooden counter kept count, click, click, of the day's stories and the number of times someone said, "No way," and then, "Okay, maybe." The shack taught improvisation. If a tour went off script because a raccoon had wandered onto the balcony and decided to be an extra, the guide rolled with it, and the raccoon, flattered, acted with rare professionalism. If the souvenir rack ran out of the most popular trinket, a new batch appeared by afternoon, slightly different, somehow better, and labeled limited edition, because in a world this alive, everything is limited edition. The shack was not a museum that asked you to whisper. It was a play that let you on stage. Of course, behind the grin sat structure. The ledger was neat. The brooms were loyal. The emergency flashlight worked. When the wind pressed its cold mouth to the walls in winter, the stove answered with a steady, belly-warm heat. The shack liked being silly, but it loved taking care of people. The joke at the front was never the whole story. The whole story was that the place wanted you to leave feeling larger than when you came, filled with something you could not exactly name but would try to echo later around your own table. Sometimes after closing, the lights softened to the color of toast and the rooms exhaled. The caretaker counted the till, then counted the day's miracles. Small ones but worth inventory. A child who had arrived tight with worry and left loose, sleepy, holding a postcard like permission to dream. Two friends who had not spoken in weeks laughing, arms slung around each other because a cardboard cutout insisted they pose like explorers. A quiet person who wrote 3 words in the comment book that could have been the start of a poem. The shack read those lines later and glowed a little brighter. If you walk by after midnight, you might hear the exhibits talking among themselves. Nothing dramatic, just professional notes. The snake in a jar complimenting the cabinet of curiosities on its hinge work. The souvenir penny press boasting that it had given someone the exact memory they needed for 50 cents. The gift shop reminding them all that tomorrow would bring a new crowd, and that new crowds are a kind of sunrise. And always, always a hand-lettered sign at the door. Welcome. No jump scares. Stay as long as you like. The shack meant it. Houses can mean things. This one did. The forest does not hurry you. It walks beside you at your pace, whispering when you're ready to hear and falling silent when your feet need to do the talking. Paths in Gravity Falls begin exactly where you think they will, and end exactly where you didn't expect, which is not a trick, just the woods teaching you to notice more than destinations. At second twilight, the needles shine. A kind of silver dust hangs in the air, not glitter, not mist. Something in between, like the breath of the day letting go. You step, and the ground accepts you. Moss keeps your secrets. Ferns tilt their green hands to show you the safe stones. The river appears and vanishes like a polite friend who walks you home without making a fuss about it. The creatures here have stories, and the stories are gentle if you tell them that way. We will. There is a small choir of gnomes that practices in a hollow log. They take their pitch from crickets and their rhythm from a nervous rabbit that taps the dirt when it forgets to be brave. The gnomes' songs are not meant for opera houses. They're meant for pockets and porches and anyone who needs to be reminded that singing can be as simple as exhaling with hope. If you listen without spying, they will raise the volume exactly 1 notch as a thank you. There is a deer that knows how to face the camera of your attention. Not because it performs, but because it understands curiosity is a kind of meal. It will stand, ears forward, and let you count the points on its antlers like birthdays. Then it will leave in a way that teaches you something about quiet goodbyes. Sometimes the path widens for no reason and then narrows around a particular stump, as if all footfalls agree it deserves the honor. That stump is the Moss Library. Everything that has ever been whispered in that part of the forest is kept here, damp and kind. You may sit on it and feel older without feeling heavy. If you leave a story, come back next week, and it will be softer around the edges like a stone the river has been thinking about. Close to the river, close, but not so close you'd get your socks wet, lives a creature that borrows shapes the way some people borrow books. If it has frightened anyone, the forest keeps that file locked. We know it as the polite shape. It appears in forms that help. Lost children see a familiar outline wave from the correct fork in the trail. Forgetful walkers glimpse a copy of themselves, set down a water bottle on a rock, then remember to pick it up. If you try to stare, it blurs and goes shy. If you say thank you and keep moving, the path unknots. There are night toads with moon-bright backs who hop exactly 5 times and stop as if counting you in. They set the tempo of safe travel. Step with them and you'll find your stride in minutes. Step against them and you'll find a blackberry bramble with berries at perfect reach, which is the forest's way of telling you to pause anyway. The trees discuss weather, not whether it will rain, that is easy, but whether the rain wants to be the kind that teaches or the kind that sleeps. They pass the decision down the line in leaf ripples. On teaching days, the drips fall in patterns you can learn. 3 quiet 1, 3 quiet 1. On sleep days, the rain plays long notes and everybody breathes slower. Look up. There is a high path only for eyes. Dashes of birds between trunks. Stitch the canopy into a quilt you can't touch but can wear in your thoughts. A hawk writes its name in cursive on the air, and nobody complains about the penmanship. Squirrels carry gossip on their tails. Even the spider webs look like carefully underlined sentences when the dew decides to annotate. Every trail keeps a box of tools beside it. You can't see the box, but you use what's inside. Patience, for when the path bends without explaining itself. Good humor for when your boot finds the one puddle that refused to look shallow. The knack of seeing the same tree twice and letting it feel like a friend rather than a mistake. If you are generous with these tools, the trail returns the favor. A log that looks too tall to step over crouches slightly. A patch of sunlight waits for you. The forest likes to assist those who assist back. If you come upon a clearing where the grass lies flat and the air tastes like cold tea, you have reached a place where a wind once sat down to think. Winds do that sometime. Leave them to it. Your thoughts will tangle less afterward, as if the wind finished a sentence for you and moved on. A soft word on safety. The woods are old and confident. They do not need to scare you to prove it. Still, paths respect boundaries. When branches lean like a closed curtain, you find another way. When a hollow goes dark too quickly, you leave it to the owls and the ideas that prefer privacy. The forest nods and thanks you. In exchange, it gifts you one undeniable arrow every hour, an unmistakable sign that says here. A feather where no bird could have preened, a pine cone pointing like a compass, a smell of smoke that travels ahead to the campsite you didn't know you needed. When you turn back, listen. The sound behind you is your own day settling into the needles, pleased with itself. The forest is a generous archive. It keeps what you bring and gives back what you've earned. Calmer steps, deeper lungs, a pocket full of soft details you can pour onto a pillow later while the ceiling fan counts. And if the moon slides out between branches as you leave, know this, it isn't following you. It's walking with you, the way the forest does. That is what friends do. The quiet curiosity. Some people carry flashlights that point outward. Dipper learned to carry one that also points in, not bright, never harsh, just enough to see the shape of a question and the shape of the person asking it. He liked maps, not because they solved everything, but because They offered a way to have a conversation with the ground. This bend in the trail is not an accident. This contour explains why the fog settles here. He marked his papers with tidy symbols and left space around them, the way you leave space on a plate for something you know is coming, but cannot name yet. He loved that a good map always has a blank edge. The blank edge meant tomorrow. His friendship with a certain journal began the way friendships do, awkwardly, then quickly, then with a rhythm that felt inevitable. He read to learn, then wrote to test, then read again to notice what he had missed. He was not chasing monsters. He was chasing understanding, which is a very different sport with gentler uniforms. His notes rarely spiked into alarm. When the unknown raised its head, he raised his eyebrows and his pencil. Being brave, he discovered, is not the same as being loud. Brave is leaving the porch twice, once when the sun is friendly, once when the dark wants a listener. Brave is saying, "I don't know yet," in a room that expects quick answers. Brave is walking back to say thank you to a place that scared you a little, and finding, to your surprise, that it only wanted to be seen in its whole shape. He organized mysteries the way a careful person organizes a toolbox. Not all at once, not with labels that shout, but with nested boxes and quiet categories that could be reshuffled without drama. Odd lights, recurring, odd lights, one time, odd lights, probably fireflies having ideas. He added a new drawer called Things That Look Dangerous but Are Actually Invitations. It filled quickly. Mistakes came. They always do. He stepped too fast once and spooked a bird that had been practicing a song just for him. He apologized to no one and everyone. He overcounted a set of tracks, reading two animals where there was one and a tail that dragged. He drew a little tail in the margin as penance, smiling. He misread the mood of a tree and leaned against it on a day it would have preferred not to be leaned on. Later he brought water for its roots and left it with patience. The tree forgave him by being very tree-like, which is how trees say, "We're good." He did not learn alone. The town taught him, one citizen at a time. A grocer who knew exactly how to ask a prickly elder for their story. A mechanic who kept a jar of screws from machines that no longer existed, labeling each just in case because just in case is a bridge to many solutions. A librarian who shelved a certain book, crooked on purpose because the reader who needed it would be the kind of person bothered by the crookedness and therefore find it. Dipper watched these maneuvers like bird flight and learned them for his own weather. He made a habit of small rituals that turned fear into fuel. Before a night walk, he counted 10 slow breaths, not because 10 is magic, but because 10 is enough time for the body to tell the mind that the body has done this before and did not break. He checked his pockets, pencil, notebook, snack, then checked his intention, to see, not to force, to be surprised without being reckless, to be careful without being closed. There were times when the journal felt heavy as if every page carried a pebble of responsibility. He would set it down and look around without a filter, letting the world come in as a body of water rather than as a list. It never took long for delight to return. A beetle carrying a piece of leaf far larger than itself with the determination of a poet dragging a metaphor into the right line break. A cloud doing the obvious shape and then changing its mind just to keep things fun. Someone's laughter sliding down the road like a ring tossed on the floor and rolling until it found a corner to rest in. He learned to ask better questions. Not, what is that, but what is that doing? Not, is this real? But how should I behave if it is? The second question made him a better guest in the valley. It also made him a reliable friend to people who needed the same courtesy. A listening ear, a pause before a conclusion, a steady, let's find out. Late nights found him at the desk with the lamp. adding lines to cupboards of knowledge that others had built before him. He wrote in a print that would be easy for nervous hands to read. He avoided words that sounded like doors slamming. He left circles around his most exciting theories, a signal to future eyes. This might be true, please check. It wasn't humility for its own sake. It was an invitation to keep playing the game. On the hardest days, he traced the town's banner in his mind. We will take care of each other, and applied it to the valley itself. The forest is a neighbor. The river is a neighbor. Even the unsolved is a neighbor. Care for them, and they will care back. Or at least, they will allow you to pass and learn without punishing your curiosity. If you ever feel a page turn in a quiet room with no wind to blame, that is Dipper somewhere, starting a new section politely. He begins as all beginners do, with a good pencil and a heart that prefers wonder to certainty. The valley likes that combination. It opens doors for it you cannot see, but you feel when your step lands, and the ground says in its deep voice, yes. If Dipper carries a lantern, Mabel carries a sunrise. You can't hold it in your hand exactly, but you can feel it on your face. It's the warmth you didn't realize you were missing, arriving in patterns of color and laughter and craft supplies that migrate like friendly birds. She believes in the technology of joy. Tape, yarn, glitter. These are devices in her workshop, tools for making the world choose brighter routes through a day. A friendship bracelet is the circuit. A sweater is armor that says, I will announce who I am with softness. A sticker is a treaty. When she labels a jar, good vibes, refills free, people obey the physics of it. In a town that sometimes folds itself into puzzles, Mabel is a key that also tells jokes. She reads rooms without a manual, a glance, a tilt of the head, and she knows whether to add noise or subtract it. If a silence is heavy, she offers a balloon. If a silence is holy, she guards it with her own noisy body like a bouncer at a library, hands on hips, smile at 11, shooing away anything too loud for the moment. Her kindness is specific. Not just you're great, but you always remember to save me the corner piece of pie, and that makes you a legend. Not just you can do it, but you already did it last Wednesday when you didn't even notice. Specific kindness sticks. People carry it longer. The town gleams with small compliments she left like coins under chair legs and on windowsills. Mabel decorates time. Tuesday becomes Two-Sweater Tuesday because the wind has opinions and she has more. Breakfast gets a theme. Walks get names. The tiny pine cone parade. The serious looking at clouds club. Membership open to anyone who can point and squint. Even waiting becomes an activity. She keeps a pocket list called Joy for When Lines Happen. Invent a handshake with yourself. Find the shape of a dog in floor knots. Plan a holiday for ants. Working title, Crumbs Giving. She is not naive. She sees the sharp edges and chooses to sand some, wrap others, and leave a few as they are, because life also needs truth to stand in a corner looking honest. When hurt arrives, she meets it directly, then guides it to a chair. And while it sits, she makes tea for both of them. She gives Sorrow a sweater, which is not denial, it is hospitality. Sorrow's treated well, misbehaved less. Mabel's friendship with the valley looks like color added to old photographs. A stump becomes a stage. A fallen branch becomes a pointer to a constellation nobody had named because everybody thought it was just stars. She names it the Leaning Llama. And for the rest of the season, children see it first thing every night and feel oriented, which is a gift maps sometimes forget to give. She has a gift for starting traditions that feel ancient by the third repetition. The first lantern of autumn, lit at the edge of town at second twilight, carried along Main Street, while everyone murmurs nice things about each other under their breath, because compliments spoken softly sink deeper. The kindness ledger in the diner, where people write something they notice someone else do, and the cook tapes the best ones above the grill so the pancakes rise higher. The secret sweater switch. Leave a note describing a sweater you'd like to borrow from the future, and somehow, within a week, a sweater appears that is exactly wrong in the right way, which is to say, perfect. She misplaces things like anyone. She misplaces them intensely and finds them with flair. A hair clip left on a stump turns into a fairy festival when she returns with ribbon. A sketchbook forgotten on the porch at the shack becomes a community zine because everybody added a page politely. She forgives herself out loud, which teaches others the trick. Oops, said cheerfully as a stitch. It closes the tear. Oops, said with laughter as a knot. It keeps it from reopening. Mabel treats fear as a costume. She puts it on at Halloween, sees how it fits, lets it scratch a little, then takes it off and hangs it on the doorknob where it will startle no one because it's a part of the decor now. When others bring their fear to her, she nods like a mechanic who has seen this model before. We'll fix it, she says, and her confidence is a wrench that fits many bolts. If Dipper's notes taught the valley how to be observed with respect, Mabel's habits taught it how to be loved loudly. The forest responds. Wildflowers prefer to bloom near paths she walks. The gnomes rehearse an up-tempo number when her footsteps approach, not because they want applause, but because joy wants company and recognizes its own. There are nights when the stars seem closer. On those nights, and Mabel makes wishes, not for herself. She is, even when she doubts it, already full. But for anyone who hasn't yet learned that a life can be both weird and wonderful without canceling either word. She wishes for softer chairs in difficult rooms, for conversations that end with hugs even when they begin with heat, for more glue sticks in classrooms and more glitter in places that think they're too serious. And when the day is finished, really finished, the way a drawing is finished, not because it has no space left, but because the artist decided to go eat cookies, Mabel tucks herself into the kind of tired that feels earned. She sets her sunrise on the nightstand, where it glows through sleep like a promise you can keep while dreaming. If you ever pass her in town and she hands you a sticker that says, "You are somebody's soft place to land," stick it somewhere you'll see on hard mornings. She is right. She usually is when she speaks from the pocket where she keeps wisdom next to gum. The valley likes both kinds of light, the lantern and the sunrise. It needs both. With them, the path ahead looks not only visible, but welcoming. With them, even endings feel like gentle doors opening to better blankets. Some people arrive in a story like thunder. Suze and Wendy arrive like weather you can live in. A steady warmth, a good breeze, the kind that makes you say we can work with this and mean it. Suze is the sound of a door that swings both ways without sticking. He knows the noise every hinge should make and the noise it actually makes after a long day. And he treats the difference like a friend who needs a snack. Give him a bent nail and a hopeful look, and he will hand you back a working afternoon. His toolbox is honest. His pockets are honest too, filled with screws that might help. A crumbly cookie he forgot to finish, and a folded note to himself that says, "Remember, kindness first, then wrench." He learned the shack's language by listening with his hands. The counter squeaks. That is just how it says hello. The neon hums. That is its way of staying brave in the rain. The shelf leans. It wants to point you toward the thing you need, even if you do not know you need it. Suze does not scold the building for being alive. He thanks it for saying what it needs out loud. Then he answers in wood glue and gentle taps. He thinks in loops that close softly. If something breaks, fix it. If someone breaks, sit with them until they remember they are not broken. He keeps a mental map of everyone's favorite kind of joke and saves them for the hard parts of the day. He is the sort of person who believes in celebrating little victories with the same seriousness as birthdays. A light bulb that finally twists in straight. A line of customers that did not lose patience. A raccoon that chose not to be a raccoon today. He marks each with a quiet yes. Seuss treats advice like a tool on loan. He tries it carefully. If it works, he returns it cleaner than he found it by telling you exactly how it helped. If it doesn't, he thanks you anyway and puts it back without making anyone feel wrong. That is a talent. The town trusts him with its small embarrassments. Squeaky shoes. A sign that keeps falling down. A memory that will not line up with the truth. He tightens what can be tightened and forgives the rest with a shrug that feels like a blanket. Sometimes, after closing, he stands in the middle of the main room and breathes like he is syncing up with the shack's heartbeat. He has a knack for joy that does not announce itself. He will find a quarter pressed under a floorboard and leave it there for a kid to discover later. He will replace a frayed rope before it frays in front of someone. He will write a note that says, "You did great today," and leave it on a clipboard where the person who needs it will find it right when they are pretending they do not. Wendy is weather of a different sort. She is the breeze that lifts the edge of a worried thought and lets light under it. She walks like gravity understands they are on good terms. The town watches her, not because it worries what she will do, but because it wants to remember how to do it too, moving through spaces without making them smaller for anyone else. She has a calendar in her head that is not about dates, it is about moods. Today needs music you can lean on. Tomorrow needs a jacket that looks like it could handle rain even if it does not. She chooses what to say with the same care as she chooses where to sit. Somewhere people can join if they want. Somewhere the exit is easy if they need it. She is fluent in the language of leaving well. Wendy's laugh is permission. Not the kind that dares you to jump from the roof. The kind that says, you can be exactly who you are, and this room will still hold. She can swing a hammer, climb a shelf, and lean against a door frame in a way that turns it into a stage where everyone else gets the spotlight. She knows when someone is performing bravery, and she knows when someone is doing it for real. She cheers both, but she keeps her loudest cheer for the quiet kind. On long afternoons, she can take a stack of chores and turn it into a rhythm. Sweep, ring up, restock, answer a question, hold a baby, talk down a panic, fix a sign, eat a granola bar, and never once make anyone feel like a chore got in the way of a person. That is a skill no schedule teaches. The forest likes her for that. When she cuts through it, on her way home, the branches step aside without being obvious about it. She carries a small knife that opens packages and peels fruit. She carries a smaller notebook nobody sees. In it, she writes tiny lists like who needs a favor and which fence squeaked and what kind of sky makes people tell the truth. She will not show you that notebook. You will know it exists by the way things are a little better near her. Suze and Wendy are a pair without trying to be. He steadies. She clears. He fixes the thing. She fixes the day around the thing. When trouble blinks awake like a child who napped too long, they exchange a look that says, "We have got this," and mean it. The shack watches them like a babysitter who knows the good kids are home. The town takes a breath when it sees them together, because some people are proof that care is not rare. If you could watch the valley at second twilight and see all the threads of help glow, theirs would crisscross everywhere. A screen door that does not slam anymore. A kid who did not cry this time because someone taller said it was okay to be scared and meant it. A friend who stayed a friend because someone named the problem out loud and then walked with them to the solution, slowly enough that the friendship did not tear. They are proof that ordinary is heroic when you keep choosing it. They are proof that jokes and competence belong in the same sentence. They are proof that a place gets better when the people who love it know where the broom is and use it without complaining. When night lids the town and the neon cools, Suze locks the door with a satisfied click, and Wendy counts the drawer with a satisfied nod. The road out is quiet. They walk it the way they do everything else, together when they can, alone when they must, always leaving the air in a better mood than they found it. Some stories you hold like a candle. This one you hold like a lantern with a shade, so the light is there but the edges are soft. We will keep it gentle. We will use metaphors like blankets. Imagine a shape that is not from around here. Not a beast with teeth, not a hero with a cape. A thought that learned to walk, a riddle that learned to grin. If curiosity had a trickster cousin, this would be it. Name it later if you like. For now, let it be the idea of a triangle that can talk. It prefers corners because corners are where decisions meet. It likes deals because deals are how wishes walk into rooms they weren't invited to. It likes to be looked at because looking makes things feel real, and it likes feeling real. It does not enjoy patience. It enjoys shortcuts. It is the part of a puzzle that wants to skip to the last page and paste the answer in without learning how the pieces fit. When it first brushed the valley, the air felt thinner for a moment, like someone had opened a window on a cold night and forgotten to close it. The trees shivered and reset their leaves. The river blinked its surface and remembered how to speak in two voices for an afternoon. One voice for fish, one for travelers who listened carefully. The town did what kind places do. It noticed and did not panic. It made tea. It watched. The triangle idea enjoys attention and grows careless when it gets too much. It tells jokes that come with invoices. It points at doors you did not know existed and says, "Walk through now, do not look, hurry, and you will have what you want." It is not a liar all the time. That is the trouble. Sometimes shortcuts do deliver you to where you meant to go, but often they deliver you to where you meant to go without all the pieces you needed to stay. There are protections against this sort of visitor. They are not loud, salt, sleep, people who ask you how your day is and mean it, promises you made to yourself when you were not scared, songs you learned as a kid that have hand motions. The triangle idea does not like hand motions. It cannot clap in time. It cannot keep up. In the journals, the notes about this are careful, not warnings in red, not all caps, just steady lines that say, "Be mindful of bargains you did not plan to make. Be mindful of power that does not come with instructions. Be mindful of any voice that tells you certainty is better than kindness." The notes include a hand-drawn curtain you can pull across the page if reading it is too much right now. You may pull the curtain. The notes will still be there later if later is better. We can afford to speak lightly because the valley learned to speak softly back. When the triangle idea tried to convince the night to sharpen its teeth, the night remembered that it prefers to hold sleepers instead. When it tried to convince the town to turn its jokes mean, the town remembered that jokes are best when everyone laughs without checking over the shoulder. When it tried to convince a few hearts that fear is faster than love, the hearts put on boots and walk together, which is slow but has better outcomes. It is good to name what a thing wants. The triangle idea wants a stage and a mirror. It wants speed limits moved. It wants applause for cleverness that does not build anything. Knowing this makes it smaller. Cleverness that builds nothing is a spark without wood. It flashes. It cannot warm a room. The valley has a different want. It wants tomorrow to be possible. It wants stories that make hands reach for other hands. It wants mysteries that teach you how to sleep better because you trust that you can wake with questions and still have breakfast with people you love. You can feel the valley's want in the way the fog holds the bottoms of trees like a shawl, in the way the diner's bell rings friendlier for cold noses, in the way the clock rests its hands for just a moment at midnight so every hour gets a little mercy. So when we talk about the triangle idea, we do it the way you talk about a storm that passed. It was loud. It got in. Some things tipped. People set them back upright. Some corners felt colder for a while. People knit scarves. The storm wanted to be permanent. It was not. It never is. It is in the nature of storms to stop, and in the nature of communities to patch, and in the nature of forests to keep growing unless you make a very large, persistent effort to stop them, which nobody here does. If a kid asks, "Is it gone?" you can say, "It is quieter." If they ask, "Could it come back?" you can say, "Most things can." Then you can teach them to close windows gently, to say no out loud, to keep an index card in their pocket. It says, "Ask a friend first." You can teach them the hand motions to the song that always chases that shape away. Right hand up, left hand out, cross and clap. Laugh because you messed up, try again. The triangle idea hates to be laughed at kindly. It prefers fear. It starves without it. The town sets out a bowl of light on the windowsill at night as a message. We see you, but you do not get to rearrange the furniture. That is the boundary. Soft does not mean weak. Soft means we pick the version of strength that lets us keep hugging afterward. And so the triangle stays on paper when it must. It becomes a lesson. It becomes a pattern on a sweater that looks cool, but does not make you run. It becomes a reminder that shortcuts are not always bad, just that they should be checked by someone who loves you before you take them. In the morning, the diner serves pancakes shaped like triangles, and nobody flinches. They taste like pancakes. Syrup still wins. Gravity Falls speaks in puzzles, because puzzles are polite. They wait for you to meet them halfway. They do not shout. They wink. They ask, "Do you want to play?" You decide. Play, and the world grows one layer richer. Do not, and the world stays exactly as kind as it was. Some codes are old as bark. Rings in a stump count years in a base. Only trees truly understand. Some are new as napkins. A note slipped under a mug in the diner. Meet me at the library at the hour the clock pretends not to keep. Some are somewhere between. A brick pattern near the square that repeats every seventh stone. A rhythm you feel in your feet more than your head. There are easy ones meant to invite. Letter shifts. Backwards writing in bathroom mirrors that make you laugh because you are not used to reading that way, and now you can. If you tilt your head, a poster that says Friday turns into Friday, which is exactly the difference between a day and a party made out of the same hours. The town likes to use this kind to welcome new players. The rule is simple. Nobody gets left out because the puzzle made a door smaller than a person. There are deeper ones for when you want to linger. Trail markers that seem like random knots in the wood, but line up if you look from the right angle. A wind chime that plays a melody that feels familiar until you realize it is spelling a word in a code you invented with your best friend last summer. A stack of papers in the library that is always one page too thick. because the librarian tucks a secret sheet in for anyone who counts. The extra sheet says something like, "Well done. Now go outside and look up." The journal pages are full of key hints. Not answers, never that, because answers unplug the fun too early. Just the right amount of help. Try every third letter after punctuation. Try reading when the bell rings. Try listening to the frogs like they are telling time. The advice is always paired with kindness. If you cannot, it adds, no worries. The frogs are still excellent frogs. Much of the town's secrecy is really privacy and costume. Doors that do not invite you in because the conversation inside is not yours to carry yet. Rooms you will find when you are ready to put something back as well as take something with you. The town uses codes the way a garden uses a fence. Not to keep people out forever, but to give things time to grow before they are shared. There is a difference between secrets that make you smaller and secrets that make you bigger. Smaller secrets are the kind you hold tight for fear. Bigger secrets are the kind you hold gently for love. The town prefers the second kind. When someone whispers in your ear, not because they want you to be scared, but because they want you to feel trusted, your chest rises, your shoulders set in a better way. You walk differently after that. Doors open for you that are not even aware they are doors. That is how bigger secrets work. Occasionally, a code arrives from outside. A postcard with letters cut from a magazine. A symbol chalked on a tree that is not one of the local ones. The town examines it the way a baker examines a flour that came from away. Curious, cautious, willing to try a small batch. If the code tastes mean, the town throws it out. If it tastes interesting, the town sets a table for it and invites the regulars to see what can be made together. There's a chalkboard at the shack that used to list daily specials and now lists ciphers. Beneath it hangs a bucket of colored chalk and a message. Add one, solve one, teach one. Children in muddy boots stand on stools to reach the top and draw shapes they have decided are letters. Teenagers add little traps for each other and then add polite hints, because the etiquette of cleverness is important here. Grown-ups pretend not to care and then stay 15 minutes longer than planned, brow furrowed, smiling, because the right answer feels like a cat coming to sit in your lap. Not all codes are made of letters. There is a woman who arranges pies in the window in a pattern that tells her daughter how the day went. 2 fruit pies means good. 1 fruit and 1 custard means interesting. 4 tiny tarts means come home a little early if you can. The daughter smiles when she passes. She texts, "See you soon," brings a flower, and the code has done its work. The most reliable cipher in town is made of people. A nod from Seuss that says, "I will get it." An eyebrow from Wendy that says, "Not now, but later." A look from the librarian that says, "Please read page 62, trust me." Even the clock's midnight pause has a translation. Breathe. The valley runs on many languages. Kindness is the one everyone speaks. At bedtime, children press paper under their pillows with a secret written in lemon juice, certain the dreams can read invisible ink. In the morning sunlight, they hold the paper over a lamp and the letters rise to the surface as if they have been listening all night. The secret always says something like, "I hope you had a nice sleep," or "I think I am brave, actually." The parents nod because, yes, that is exactly what the world needs to hear. If you are new and you want to begin, the town will start you gently. Count steps between lampposts. Learn the names of 3 trees. Ask the river what it remembers about last Tuesday, and listen to your own answer. Codes do not exist to prove how smart you are. They exist to make the ordinary glow. They turn the day into a treasure hunt where the prize is noticing. And remember, when a puzzle frustrates you, close the book, and eat something. Even the cleverest cipher cannot argue with soup. Daytime weirdness stretches and yawns at night. It puts itself away like toys, not because it is scolded, but because it believes in bedtime. Gravity Falls After Dark is not a stage for jump scares. It is a dormitory for odd ideas, a quiet where even the strangest things tiptoe. Listen to the vending machine at the edge of town. In daylight it clacks and whirs like a robot learning to clap. At night it hums lullabies, not melodies you will recognize, tones that match your steps, slowing you without asking. If you stand close, you will feel the hum in your ribs, and your bones will say, "Thank you for remembering we are instruments." The lake, too, understands rest. It gathers lanterns, real ones on boats, imagined ones floating just above the surface, and aligns them into constellations, where fishermen and dreamers find their favorite shapes. A fish breaks the surface with a plip so polite it barely counts as sound. Somewhere on the opposite shore, someone lets a story end on purpose, and there is applause in the form of 3 soft claps. The water carries them like beginning of sleep thoughts, warm and weightless. Street lamps become archivists. They file the day's laughter into amber drawers and mark them with dates written light. They soften the sharp corners of conversations, patting them down so tomorrow will not inherit their edges. They keep an eye on raccoons who pretend to be shadows and shadows who pretend to be raccoons. Their notes are thorough. Their tone is forgiving. The forest carries a night shift of caretakers. Moths in pale coats check the blossoms to make sure each one got at least a little attention. The polite shape makes 2 or 3 rounds to reassure itself that nobody is lost. The moss library closes its cover but leaves a bookmark sticking out so anyone who needs to open it at midnight will not feel like a rule breaker. Owls keep lists. The lists are short. They include items like make sure the wind does not forget where the edges of town are, and hoot exactly once when the clock takes its small rest. The Mystery Shack sleeps, the way a good host sleeps, lightly. If you walk by, you might hear wood settling the way good bread settles after it leaves the oven. You might hear a laugh trapped behind glass all day dissolve into the rafters. You might hear Seuss' toolbox sigh because everything is finally where it belongs. The sign outside pares itself down to a few letters, M-S-T-Y-H-K. You can fill in the rest. The night trusts you. In bedrooms, sweaters hang like flags at half-mast, resting after the work of being brave in public. Journals lie open to blank pages that are not waiting impatiently. They know you will write when you can. Pencils lie diagonally because that is how hope sleeps. On nightstands, water glass rings mark maps of former thoughts. Tomorrow you will hold them up to the light and see continents. Sometimes weirdness and rest negotiate. The jukebox in the diner wants to play a song at 2 in the morning because it believes that is the kindest time. The diner asks for quiet, so the jukebox invents a silent version. It moves the records gently, counts a beat, and does not drop the needle. The gesture is enough. A person eating pie hears nothing and still feels less alone. There are dreams here that do not belong to anyone in particular. Free-range dreams. They wander like cats and find laps. You might dream you are walking a familiar street where the doors have each painted a new color just for fun. You might dream you are on a boat with no oars that goes exactly where you want because the lake decided to be helpful. You might dream you are reading a book to a group of trees who turn their leaves at the page turns. These dreams do not demand that you remember them. They demand only that you wake up kinder. Even the unresolved rests. The question you could not answer at lunch lays down its head beside yours and stops wriggling. The plan you could not finish sits quietly on the chair like tomorrow's outfit, ready but not scolding. The triangle idea from earlier peers in the window and sees the bowl of light and shrugs and keeps walking because the night has its own rules and they are enforced by blankets. Weirdness at rest is a promise the town makes to itself. We can be extraordinary and still sleep. The clock helps. At midnight, it takes its breath. For one heartbeat, time is not counted. It is simply held. In that heartbeat, every creature and person who ever felt rushed get a little refund. The clock resumes and nobody loses anything. They only gain. If you are awake then, you might feel a hand smooth your hair the way wind smooths grass. That is the valley making sure your edges are not too sharp to sleep on. You might hear a soft tap at the window. That is nothing to fear. It is only the night checking the latches, proud that the town knows how to rest so well, even its oddness keeps a curfew. And when morning comes, because morning always comes here, the weirdness wakes gently. Vending machine back to clack, lake back to sparkle, jukebox back to full-throated songs, street lamps yawn and click off. The moss library opens its cover crack and breathes in pine. The clock smiles and gets back to work. The town thanks the night for its service and puts on coffee. The day stands in the doorway, ready to be strange again in the kind way. Sleep now, knowing this. Gravity Falls holds both halves of the world, the part that questions and the part that rests, and it loves them equally. Let's tell this softly. One morning the colors leaned. Not in a scary way, more like paintings in a gallery after a small tremor. The sky tilted its hat to the left. Shadows grew curious and stretched in directions that did not belong to the sun. Corners of rooms pulled away from walls and hovered an inch in the air as if corners wanted a better view. People noticed. People breathed. The town did the most Gravity Falls thing it could do. It made tea. On Main Street, shop windows reflected scenes from a slightly different hour, last Tuesday at 4, a birthday, a shrug that fixed an argument. The reflections were not traps, they were reminders. A few leaves drifted upward, decided they preferred down, and returned. The clock in the square paused a little longer than usual at midnight, and also, surprisingly, at noon. Time was trying on outfits. It wanted to look nice for the moment. Above it all, ideas flew. A triangle among them, bright and talkative, eager to be the center of every sentence. It tried to turn jokes sharp and thin. The town shook its head. It preferred jokes that make elbows touch and eyes close. The triangle was fast. The town was steady. Steady wins these games, no matter what fast says. The strange spread like glitter blown from a hand. Buildings breathed. Signs swapped letters and then swapped back because the letter R felt important to the diner, and the letter E meant a lot to the hardware store. A street bent into a circle and returned to a line as if it had finished a private errand. Birds wrote cursive that meant nothing unless you chose to believe it meant you are not alone, which is a good thing to choose. Small rules arrived. Not the thunder kind. The blanket kind. Keep hold of hands. Ask out loud, even if you think no one can hear. Is this safe? Wait for the feeling that answers. Do not take shortcuts that ask you to walk past your neighbor without seeing them. Music helps, so do snacks. The first lantern of the season was lit in daytime and did not mind. Light is light. Children wore cardboard crowns to feel brave, and adults wore paper bracelets to remember that grown-ups need talismans too. The diner served triangle pancakes with extra syrup in the label. Nothing to fear, just good breakfast. Syrup beat fear by a wide margin. Where the town grew thin, the people grew thick. Thick with patience, thick with kindness. Suze tied ribbons between lampposts and told everyone, "Follow the ribbons if the road looks confused." Wendy patrolled moods. She found the ones turning to glass and warmed them with 3 words. Let's walk together. The librarian opened the doors and declared the stacks a shelter. Books hummed. Chairs exhaled. The good pens came out. The journals stayed open. Pages that once worn now guided. Not beware. More begin here. Drawings of doors with tiny notes. This one asks for 2 people, not 1. This one is for later, bring cocoa. This one closes if you sing. So sing. Whoever needed the notes found them. The notes found who needed them. The forest adapted like a host who has seen every kind of guest. Trees made extra roots for a day and steadied the drifting sidewalk. The polite shape passed water bottles to people who forgot thirst when they remembered everything else. Owls counted. Gnomes, in a rare daytime concert, sang a short song in 3 parts that made the air sit down. Everyone did simple work. Sweep, hold, call. Write names on sticky notes and put them on foreheads to keep laughter near. Replace panic with very specific tasks. Walk this block. Carry these muffins. Tell 3 people a story about last summer. When the oddness pressed, the tasks pushed back gently and did not break. The triangle tried bargains. It skipped the part where you think and offered speed. The town answered with the slower yes. The slower yes is the kind that lasts. This irritated the triangle. It grew louder. The town grew calmer. Calm, held together by many hands, is louder than you would think. There were moments of awe that did not hurt. A lake that reflected stars at noon. A herd of deer standing in a perfect square on the soccer field, as if voting. A roof that lifted 2 inches so a breeze could pass, then set itself down again as though embarrassed by the kindness of its own bones. People cried, not from fear, from the relief of being part of a place that remembered how to be gentle while being impossible. At the center of town, they drew a circle in chalk, not to keep things out, to keep people in long enough to breathe. Inside the circle stood the banner from the first festival. We will take care of each other. Children traced the letters with fingers and learned the feel of each promise. Grown-ups traced them too. As the day went on, the strangeness tired. It is hard to keep dancing when the music is kindness. The triangle found fewer places to echo. It flickered between windows, then in spoons, then in the shine of a doorknob, then in the space between blinks. It said it would return with teeth. The town said, we will still have tea. The triangle hates tea. Evening brought a steadying. Corners clicked back into corners. The sky leveled its hat. A few floating objects settled with soft thumps and embarrassed coughs. Everyone clapped, the way you clap at the end of a flight when the landing was windy. When it was not over in a single moment. It ended like waking. First the room, then the window, then the trees, then the idea that you are still exactly where you belong. People swept chalk, folded blankets, refilled the bowl of light on the windowsill. They told the story once already as they walked home. Tomorrow they would tell it better. The valley listened and learned new ways to hold the town. The journals added a page titled, If It All Gets Weird Again. The first line was simple. Call your neighbor by name. And then, put a lamp in the window. Choose the longer yes. Let the clock rest for 1 heartbeat when it needs to. Make pancakes, shaped like whatever scared you. Eat them with friends. The page left room at the bottom. A blank space for the next generation to write their own gentle rules. Night came. Real night, the regular kind. The moon checked latches. Streetlights filed the day. The town slept. Somewhere, a triangle idea curled into a paper shape and slid between the pages of a book it had never read. The book closed. the shelf side. Peace is heavier than people expect, and that is why it stays. Summer is a guest who knows when to leave. It does not sneak out. It lingers in the doorway, offers one more cookie, and promises to write. Gravity Falls prepares for this goodbye with rituals that look small and feel big. Everyone cleans, not because a rule says so. Because cleaning is how you tell a place, thank you. The shack's porch gets a careful sweep, and the broom pauses at the step where 100 goodbyes have been said so the grain can remember the weight of them. The diner's windows get washed in gentle circles. The circles catch the light and turn into halos that hover above the bar stools. The library dusts the tops of tall shelves no one can see and finds 3 lost notes that say, "Meet at the lake, find the blue sweater, bring more glue." The notes go into a scrapbook labeled Summer Agreements. Mabel makes a schedule titled The Last of Things, the last sweater of the season, soft, loud, comforting. The last lantern walk at second twilight, the last secret sweater switch, the last kindness ledger reading before it flips to a new page. She tapes the schedule to the fridge with tape that smells like strawberries. It peels at the corners and sticks again because even tape wants a few more days. Dipper adds his own list in neat print. Journal loose ends. Sketch the odd rock near the South Trail. Compare river voice before and after rain. Copy the field promises forward. Underline the ones that felt most true this year. He leaves a blank half page at the end of each section, for tomorrow or for someone else. Suze repairs what wants to stay. A railing that will miss small hands. A hinge that refuses to squeak when the quiet of autumn needs to arrive like a sigh. He writes one secret message under a step with a carpenter's pencil. "You did good, porch." He pats the wood and it holds that sentence all winter like a hot coal. Wendy checks the mood of the town. It is tender. People walk a little slower to make the street longer. She stands in doorways with her shoulder on the frame and collects small goodbyes the way Annette collects leaves. She promises to keep the hard days small and the good days bigger. She means it, and the door frames know. The lake hosts the lantern flotilla. Not a parade, a drift. People place lanterns on tiny rafts and push them out with 2-finger nudges. The lanterns carry messages into the dark, not prayers exactly, not wishes exactly. Thank yous mostly. Thank you for the swim. Thank you for listening when I talked to you like a mirror. Thank you for sparkling when I needed proof the world still could. The lanterns arrange themselves in shapes that have names now because of a girl who loved naming constellations. The leaning llama bends to read them. A small ceremony happens at the town sign. Children stand on step stools and touch up the paint with careful strokes. A grown-up holds the paint can and reads the banner. We will take care of each other. Everyone hums the tune they made for it last year. The tune is 6 notes long and very catchy. Tourists look confused. Locals tap the rhythm on their thighs and smile without explaining. Not everything has to be explained to be shared. In bedrooms, suitcases open. They smell like closets and next plans. Clothes fold. Trinkets choose which pocket to travel in. A pressed leaf, a button, a penny that says the year like a secret handshake. Journals stack. Pencils lose their points and do not mind. A last page waits. It will be written after the goodbye because no one can write this while it is happening. The Mystery Shack holds a quiet checkout. Not a sale, an exchange. People bring the small items some are left behind. A toy dinosaur, a receipt with a note on the back, a lost earring, a promise to call. The shack gives back what people forgot they were owed, a laugh that didn't land at the time, a thank you no one heard, a sense that they will be welcome again. Sue stamps a card for each person that says, "Good guest." The stamp pad is low on ink and still works. Goodbyes happen in layers. The public one on the porch with arms and tears, the second one at the mailbox with the flag up, and a postcard already stamped. The private one at the stump in the woods where you sit and let the air move through you like pages. The stump has the patience of granite and the softness of a cushion. It accepts your last words and gives back a silence that says, "I'll keep them safe." There is a last sunrise. It comes with the particular chill that makes people check their sleeves. Breath shows. It's friendly. It reminds you that you are alive in a body the weather can touch. The street wakes a little later. The neon sign hums a little lower. The diner opens exactly on time and pretends it is no big deal that today is the day. Pancakes appear. Syrup is brave. The ride out of town feels longer than the ride in. The road offers new views that were hidden by summer's tall thoughts. People watch the sign in the rear window until it becomes a shape, then a color, then just part of the picture frame. They do not look away because looking away is not the same as saying goodbye. Looking away is for later, when the miles need to be counted. On that final night before real departure, a few rituals end everything. The way a good story ends, not with a door slam, with a lamp turning down. Mabel puts a sticker under a table in the diner where only kind hands will find it. The sticker says, "You made this place better." Dipper writes 3 words at the bottom of his list. "Leave room open." Suze turns his toolbox so the handles face the door. Tools like to say goodbye too. Wendy folds a note and slips it into the pocket of a jacket that does not belong to her. The note is only a drawing of the road, with an arrow pointing back. Night comes. The clock takes its breath. The town lies still enough to hear the echo of summer leave, not the sound of doors closing. The sound of someone walking down the porch steps and whistling because the visit was good and the walk to the gate is short. Sleep takes everyone quickly. Goodbyes are tiring in the way good work is tiring. The moon moves along the roof lines and checks for one last lamp. There is one, always one, a bowl of light on a windowsill. It stays. A sign for travelers who are not leaving tonight. A promise for ones who are. Morning will come with trains and buses and cars. It will come with last glances and waves, and maybe a joke that was saved for this very moment. It will come with coffee poured into travel cups and lids snapped on and arms through sleeves. It will come with a soft thought. We did this right. Summer leaves. The town keeps the space warm. When people go, places do not empty. They change jobs. Gravity Falls becomes a caretaker of memory and a teacher of next times. The first morning after, the town wakes like always and also not like always. The difference is small and large and made of details. The diner opens. The bell rings the same note, a hint lower like a voice that cried a little yesterday and is better now. The kindness ledger flips to a new page. Someone writes, "To the ones who left, travel safe," and someone else writes, "To the ones who stayed, keep the porch light on." The cook makes 2 pancakes he does not plate, then eats them leaning on the counter, one for each of the twins in the story he will keep telling to new customers who ask why the jukebox has a sticker that says, "No drama, only bops." The library rearranges 3 books on a bottom shelf, a small puzzle that gives itself for fun. On the returns cart rest 2 volumes about oceans and a field guide to clouds. The librarian stamps them in quietly and places a sticky note inside each one that says, "Welcome back," even though books do not need this, or perhaps they do. The Mystery Shack practices a new trick, being a museum for a summer that just happened. The front room has a small display labeled "Lost and Found After a Good Season." It holds a paper crown, a pressed flower, a ticket stub that no longer belongs to anything, and a photograph that captured only elbows and joy. People stop and smile. Suze dusts the case and tells it a joke so the items inside will not feel lonely. He teaches the sign to say, "Open with an extra blink at dusk," the blink that means friends are still friends. Wendy invents a walk called the Afterpath. She shows it to anyone who asks, which is only 2 people the first week and 15 by the third. The path takes you past places that are gentle with memory. The stump that knows your secrets, the fence that holds a carpenter's compliment, the spot on Main where you can hear the clock breathe if you stand very still. The path ends at the town sign. People trace the letters with fingers, then go home by a different route, because after is not the same as before. Postcards arrive. Not all from far away. Some from 5 miles down the road, some from a different coast that smells like salt and gulls. They stack on the counter in the post office. The clerk reads the backs without intrusion, just a glance. Enough to know the town is still inside the sentences even when the return address is not. Saw a cloud shaped like the shack. Ocean keeps its promises loud. Tell the diner the syrup here tries its best. The journals do exactly what they were built to do. They keep. They wait. They learn new hands. A careful kid checks them out one at a time like a fragile set of dishes and reads them under a blanket with a flashlight that is definitely not allowed, except this is a library that knows when to look the other way. A teenager copies a field promise onto a notebook cover. A grown-up adds a sketch of a particular rock because the blank half page invited them. The books do not complain about changes in handwriting. The books love new ink. The forest returns to normal weirdness. It never stopped. It only quieted to let the goodbye pass. The polite shape continues its rounds. The moss library opens its cover to the chapter called Leaves That Fell Late. Gnomes rehearse winter songs that involve smaller hats. Owls hoot tallies. Squirrels healthy. Wind respectful. Paths clear. The deer stand in a square only once more to prove they remember how. At the water line where the lake meets the stones, a person with a suitcase stands and nods at their reflection a week after leaving. They have returned already to return again later. Gravity Falls understands that leaving and returning itches the same place in the heart and scratches it too. Meanwhile, out past maps, 2 brothers stand on a boat that rocks like laughter. Ocean air writes salt on their faces. The deck rolls. The world opens. Stan counts fish and luck, often confusing the two, which is fine because fish and luck are cousins. Ford maps currents with the same patient joy he gave to mapping the forest. He writes by lantern light and sometimes by starlight when the pages want to be dramatic. They argue about nothing for sport. They argue about something important for a minute and then quit because dinner is ready and apologies are easier with warm food. At night, they set a small lantern at the stern and watch the sea choose a path for the light. The lantern leans left, then right, then finds center. They toast the town with cocoa brewed in a dented pot and promise to carry its banner on water. We will take care of each other fits on a boat as well as it fits above a square. They send a postcard with a drawing of a wave that looks suspiciously like the edge of the forest. The postcard takes the long way. It arrives exactly when it will make someone smile the most. Seasons turn. Autumn unrolls a red rug for the hills. Winter folds the town in white and makes everything quiet enough to hear soup boil. Spring shakes the branches and laughs at its own reflection in puddles. With each change, the after grows into now. The town never forgets. It adds. A new family hangs a wind chime made from keys to doors that do not exist anymore. The sound is a chord everybody knows by heart. A teacher starts a unit called Local Mystery Appreciation and assigns homework like, find something odd and thank it. A sign appears on the library corkboard. Knit night, all skill levels, beginners welcome, bring stories. Codes keep playing. The chalkboard at the shack fills with ciphers that say silly things, sweet things, and occasionally a recipe. The diner pie window continues its parent-daughter pattern. The clock learns a new trick. It rests a heartbeat not only at midnight, but when needed. During big news, during small griefs, during firsts that wobble, and seconds that nearly break. People feel it. They later describe it as a little help from time, and no one argues with the phrase. The bowl of light stays on the windowsill of more than one house. It is a quiet club. You see the bowl in a lit window, and you know a person lives there who will answer a knock and say, "Come in, tell me, no matter the hour." The triangle idea passes sometimes and sees the bowls and chooses a different street. The bowls make poor stages for deals. They make excellent altars for ordinary courage. On a slow afternoon, the town square holds a small market. Berries, honey, buttons, used books, a jar of mysterious air that is somehow exactly the same jar as always and also a new one. People buy more than they need because buying a story is part of feeding a town. In a corner, a child draws a map on the pavement. It includes the diner, the shack, the stump, the sign, and a place labeled somewhere else. An arrow points to somewhere else, and from there a dotted line returns to the center. The child draws a heart where the lines meet and announces, "It's a round trip." Evenings still look like they did before. Porches, crickets, the flick of a book page, the clock's breath. The same stars, yet not the same, because somebody taught more people their names. The leaning llama rises and bends. People stand in backyards and point and say, "There it is," because it always is, and that is the magic. If a stranger comes through asking about the summer with voices and impossible things, the town tells the truth in its own way. It speaks of a day when corners lifted and neighbors held on to each other. It speaks of lanterns that floated and made shapes you could read if you wanted to. It speaks of pancakes that looked like fear and tasted like breakfast. The stranger nods, puzzled and moved, and stays one extra night for reasons they cannot explain. That is how the town grows, with extra nights. There is always a ready place for return. Beds that remember your favorite side. A chair that got used to your weight and did not let another body press there too long. A mug that says, "World's okayest hero," because okay, heroes are the kind that last. The town does not pine. It prepares. It keeps traditions like clean sheets and full cookie jars. And somewhere a train rolls. Somewhere a road bends back toward the pines. Someday a car will crest the hill and the sign will appear, and the paint will be a little chipped and a little brave, as always. The bell at the diner will learn the name again. The shack will blink its letters. The forest will open the first page of a chapter it has been saving. After the pines is not empty. After is a table set for whoever walks in next, including the ones who already know the way. The valley holds the room. The room holds the breath. The breath holds the names. The names hold each other. Night arrives. The bowl of light glows. The clock rests. The town sleeps, ready for the knock it loves best, the one that says, "We made it back." Some places keep their shape even when no one is looking. Gravity Falls is one of those. It does not fade when backs are turned. It does not vanish when roads curve away. It holds steady like a hand on your shoulder, the kind that does not push or pull, just lets you know you are not alone. By day, the town is a clock that likes its job. By night, it is a book that reads itself softly. Between those and the hour the valley calls second twilight, it is a promise. Colors thin into hush. The air tastes like pine and old sunlight. Paths remember your shoes and present the flat stones without boasting. The river lowers its voice until even pebbles can get a word in. If you stand where Main Street meets the woods, you can feel 3 stories touching. The first is the lands, older than anyone, ringed into trees, braided into water. The second is the towns, painted on signs, taped to diner corkboards, told across counters with pie steam curling like punctuation. The third is yours, whatever you brought, whatever you're leaving with. The Pines family added their chapters to all 3 books. They were not the beginning. They will not be the end. They were the part where the story learns a new way to breathe. The banner still hangs in the square on special days. We will take care of each other. It is not a slogan anymore, it is muscle memory. Kids skip under it without reading because their legs already know how the sentence works. Grown-ups tie it higher when the wind wants to be helpful and lower when short arms need to feel included. Ribbons drift from its corners and point like compasses toward what matters. The shack, the library, the stump, the lake, the sign, the porches, the hands. The shack, gap-toothed and proud, continues to practice everyday magic. It performs the rare trick of letting people be sillier and safer at the same time. On quiet weeks, it teaches itself to creak in new keys so returning guests feel a different welcome than last time. So's keeps its heart in tune, tapping nails like drum beats that promise, you can laugh here, you can mend here. Wendy patrols the air for splinters of bad mood and sands them smooth with a grin and a "you got this" that never sounds mass-produced. The forest stays wide without getting lost. Trails swap tiny secrets. This log crouched for a child. That fern bowed to a shy rabbit. This patch of sunlight waited an extra minute. The Moss Library fattens a chapter called Everything That Got Softer. The polite shape practices being exactly what a person needs to see at a distance. A nudge, not a demand. Owls mark down the nights when nobody cried and hang those nights like medals on invisible nails. The journals, lined and patient, keep making room. New hands write notes in new inks, and the old pages do not bristle. The field promises still ride at the back. Take only what the page can carry. Leave the forest a thank you. Name things with care. Tell truths like bedtime stories when you can. Someone has added a new one in green pencil. Learn each other's good news by heart. Someone else has added a small drawing of 2 mugs and a window with a bowl of light in it. The clock in the square has perfected its midnight breath. It has also learned to take one when afternoons snag and tempers fray. The hands pause, no one sees, and then keep going. The town feels the small mercy without needing to name it. Time can be kind if you are. Time likes to match its host. If you angle your head just so, you can feel the triangle idea on the far edge of the map. Reduced to a math problem nobody brings up at dinner. It is not erased. It is understood. Things that wanted to be storms learned they were weather. Weather learned it is welcome when it waters gardens and then moves along. The town remembers not to bargain with appetite. It remembers a song with hand motions. It remembers that the fastest yes isn't always the truest. Mabel Sunrise still walks the streets, even when she isn't there to wear it, because joy leaves fingerprints. Stickers with sentences like, "You are a good place to stand," appear on lampposts at exactly the right height for small eyes. Sweaters survive winters and become heirlooms. A tradition called crumbs giving thrives among ants near the diner steps. Someone puts up a tiny sign. Laughter chooses the quick route through town. It knows the alleys by name. Dipper's tidy questions still hover over certain corners like helpful ghosts. People pause on porches and ask, "What is this doing?" Not just, "What is this?" The shift keeps the place gentle. Doors open in safer ways. Curiosity gets better manners. A kid with a notebook copies the careful print and adds "please check" next to every theory. That phrase becomes a local blessing. You hear it at hardware counters and in the woods. Please check. It sounds like love that wants you to be right and safe. Some evenings, the lake holds a practice night for lanterns with no event schedule. 2 or 3 lights, that's plenty. They float together and make a shape that looks like a constellation you invented as a child and then forgot to tell anyone. The water keeps the secret without sulking. It understands that not every beautiful thing needs to be announced to count. Once a season, the town gathers in the square for Marginalia Day. Not a festival exactly, more like a friendly inventory. Everyone brings something that could go in the margins of a life. Ticket stubs, found buttons, pressed ferns, comic panels cut too crooked to sell, but too perfect to throw away. The first decent photograph from a cheap camera, a note that says, "Call me when you're outside." They pin it all to a long paper banner and write around it. The valley reads and hums approval. People leave feeling more legible to themselves. There is a small hill to the west with a stump at the top. You know the one. The bark holds decades of elbows. The view holds the entire town in a kindly frame. Stand there at second twilight, and you will see something true. The pines are not only trees, they are lines on a page. The wind is reading them aloud. The town is a story about choosing the slower yes. The forest is a story about how listening makes room. The people are a story about how being brave and being gentle are not opposite directions. The word eternal can sound heavy. Here it is lighter. Eternal means the pattern knows how to repeat without becoming a loop that traps you. Eternal means the next person finds the same kindness and gets to add a strand of their own. Eternal means the bowl of light on the windowsill, yours, mine, the diners, the shacks, never runs out because everyone takes a turn filling it. If you want a map, the town will hand you one drawn in pencil with smudges at all the best turns. If you want a recipe, it will give you a measured list and then wink and say, "Trust your hand." If you want proof that you can leave and return and be welcomed by the exact same smell of coffee and rain, you will find it at 8:03 a.m. on any day the clouds feel generous. If you want to sleep, the valley will lower the lamps. Walk with me once more. Past the porch that learned your footsteps. Past the kind sign with a brave chip in the paint. Past the shop window that remembers your face from last summer and grows a little clearer. Through the square where the banner hangs like a sentence a town can finish in its sleep. Down to the river that has never lost the thread of its own story. Into the trees that hold it all like a choir holds a long note. Here is the last path tonight. The one that always arrives exactly when the page gets thin. The needles quiet your shoes. The air carries a little mint, a little sap, a little yesterday sunshine. The moon shoulders up beside you like a friend who walks you to your door because that is what friends do. When you reach home, the one with the window that keeps a small bowl of light for travelers, turn the knob. It will not stick. The room will greet you with the certain feeling that it saved your place. The bed will remember which side you prefer. On the nightstand, a pencil lies diagonally on a blank page because hope sleeps that way. The page says nothing yet. That is its way of saying tomorrow. The clock across town draws breath. The town holds yours. The pines breathe for themselves and for anyone too tired to remember how. The last thing you notice before sleep is a soft sound that could be leaves, could be pages, could be water on stones. It is all of them. The valley keeps its promise. It keeps you. That's the lantern dimming. The rooms fold their edges in. The neon outside gentles itself to the kind of hum that sounds like stay. The bowl of light on the windowsill holds steady, bright enough for travelers, soft enough for dreams. Street lamps file the day. The clock sets its hands on its lap and rests for one heartbeat. Yours. If you need a last picture to carry into sleep, choose any. The lake with two lanterns drifting like patient eyes. The stump on the hill, elbows pressed into its bark, town gathered below like a quilt. The diner window halos on glass, a plate turned to catch the last warm inch of light. The shack's sign, a letter or two missing. The invitation somehow clearer because you help fill the blanks. The banner in the square, a sentence that makes rooms bigger. We will take care of each other. If you need a last sentence, keep it small. I am held here. I am allowed to rest. Tomorrow will have pages for me. Breathe in pine, out worry. In river, out noise. In starlight, out hurry. Let the second twilight finish its quiet work behind your eyes. Let the forest turn the page for you. Let the journal close without a click. Somewhere a porch light checks the latch. Somewhere an owl marks the hour with one polite note. Somewhere a pencil rolls 1 inch, finding the stop it was looking for. Somewhere the triangle idea chooses another street because laughter slept in yours. Somewhere the boat on far water rocks exactly enough to count as a lullaby. Here, your room is easy. Blankets are sure. Pillows learn the shape again and nod. The bed takes your weight without comment and gives it back as warmth. Outside, the pines keep watch the way pines do, unimpressed by alarm, loyal to wind, fluent in hush. Good night, gravity falls. Good night, sign with chip-brave paint. Good night, porch steps, clock hands, kind ledger, mossy books, second twilight, and its silver breath. Good night, lanterns. Good night, lake. Good night, shack that laughs with its wood and means it. Good night, forest that listens more than it speaks. Good night, town that chose the slower yes and found it was the door. Sleep now, easy and long. When you wake, whenever you wake, the page will be where you left it. The pencil will point toward tomorrow. The bowl of light will still be in the window, and the pines will still be breathing.